America's a pretty big place. When I was growing up, it was just being taken over by television. I'm a remnant of the era before they had television in every home, which happened when I was about 9 or 10 years old. All of a sudden, it was everywhere. So I grew up listening to the radio. And then when all the entertainment that was on the radio moved to the television, the radio was used to play music. And so that's why I started hearing music on the radio, and then I found the black-oriented stations, because America was a segregated society at that time in terms of its black and white citizens. So they had radio stations that were programmed for black people to listen to. So anyone could hear them because they were on the radio airwaves. So as a kid, I found these stations, and I heard this music, and it was just inflamed my tiny imagination. And really, I've been there ever since. I was in prison in 1966 for marijuana possession. Did 6 months in the Detroit House of Correction. And when I got out, they had a party for me. And all my friends had played, and poets, and we had a place called the Detroit Artist Workshop, which on November 1st we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary, I'm proud to say. That's crazy. But they had this party for me, and this band had moved into our neighborhood. They were a rock and roll band. We were mostly jazz and players and poets and what have you. And this band, they wanted to play to welcome me home, because they were from the neighborhood. So that's when I first met them. And then about a month later, I saw them perform in concert. And I just thought, man, this is really a great band. So whenever they would play, I would go to see them play. Then I became friends with the singer of the band, Rob Tyner. He was the guy with this master plan of what you could do with a band to make it have an impact in society beyond just selling records and getting rich. Well, I was all for this. So we started what we would say plotting and scheming together to figure out, ranting and raving was more like it. And trying to figure out what we could do to make some kind of impact in this social order that was stacked against us. And encourage people not to go into the armed services and fight the war in Vietnam. You know, talk to them about the freedom for black people and civil rights and what have you. And not to mention we were terrible potheads. So we wanted marijuana legalized as well, and all drugs really. So, you know, I was in the poetry and jazz racket, which never had any, there was never any idea that you were going to reach a lot of people with this. You know, you were doing this despite the fact that no one would ever pay any attention to you because you wanted to do it. You were an artist. You wanted to do this. You wanted to play this crazy shit. You wanted to write these poems that didn't rhyme. And you did it because you wanted to in your heart. But in rock and roll, if you made it, I mean, it didn't matter how good you were. You know, you still weren't going to get a big audience. If you were the greatest poet in the world, you weren't going to get a big audience. But in rock and roll, if you did what you did really good, and you presented it really well, you could win over large audiences. And of course, the mark set by the Beatles. You could reach everyone in the world with your art. Boy, this is an exciting concept to me, coming from where I was coming from. And I really liked the band. I loved the music. And then I was really close friends with all the guys. And Tyner was like my best friend. So over a period of a year, I went to every time they played, and I hung out with, and then this period, nothing was happening for them. They had different people that were trying to manage them. They made some old 45s for some labels. Nothing was happening. And I thought, Well, what they really need is somebody to take care of the nuts and bolts. My vision was that they should be able to just play. They should just be able to just play, and in daily life, they should be able to rehearse every day and play better. I thought this was the key to everything. So I took over for myself all the menial tasks involved with keeping a small enterprise running. And I'd had a little training because in the Detroit Artist Workshop, I was responsible for making sure the rent was paid and the utilities, and if a window got broke, I'd have to fix it. So I know how to do things. A lot of hippies really didn't know how to do things. So I know how to call up the store and order a gross of drumsticks and tell him when he would get paid. I knew how to talk to a guy about a gig and where it was and when and how much it was worth. And was it enough to make it worthwhile for us to go there. I knew how to keep the car, the vehicle running, all this kind of stuff. When I got out of high school and went to college, I was a rhythm and blues fanatic and rock and roll in the mid-50s. I was a huge fanatic. I wanted to be a disc jockey. When I went to college, a guy heard me on a little radio show where I played rhythm and blues records in the morning. And this guy came to me to see if those were actually my records that I was playing, and then we talked, ranted and raved about rhythm and blues records for a couple hours. And then he asked me if I'd ever heard jazz, and I said, "Are you into jazz?" And I said, "No, I don't think I've ever heard any jazz. I don't really know anything about it at all." So he grabbed me by the arm and he took me out. We were in a dormitory. He took me from my room to his room, and he sat me down. He said, "Listen to this. I think you're going to like this." And he played Dig by Miles Davis, Sonny Rollins, Jackie McLean, Art Blakey. That was the first record I heard. I said, "Man, this is a shit. I like this." So he turned me on, as people will do to their friends. And then in those days, you know, you could go to the record shop, the little record shop, and you could play records in a booth. And you could take records in there. And I would take 10 records in the booth. I'd play one and I'd read the backs of the other 9, you know. Just wanted to know more about this. It was so great. So that's how I got into jazz. And I just started studying this stuff. And, I started in jazz about the time that, to me, the best jazz record of all time ever came out, Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, 1959. So I started at a pretty good level, you know. I got that from the Columbia Record Club. You used to be able to get 6 records for a penny. So I joined several times under different names. So I started from that, and then you say Coltrane, Miles Davis. You go to the store and look for Miles Davis records. And then you take them in and play them. Coltrane, who's playing John's Philly, Joe Jones. I wonder if he's on any other road, you know, that kind of thing. Well, I think through Miles Davis, the Modern Jazz All-Stars, I think I probably met Thelonious Monk that way. And so then there was I wanted to know more about Thelonious Monk. I wanted to know more about Charlie Parker. Was already gone by the time my interest started, but I wanted to know everything I could know about Charlie Parker because his music was so great. So it was this passion and love for this stuff. And I thought I liked Monk, but this project started when he passed away in 1982. And I realized that I didn't know his music like I should, for someone who was as gigantic as he was musically. Because most of his innovative period was done by the time I started listening to him. In other words, it lasted till about 59. So when I was fanatical about going and seeing people and buying their records, yeah, Monk was kind of like doing new versions of his old tunes and stuff. So I went to the old ones. Anyway, after he passed, I thought, man, I've been remiss to myself. I should know more about this. So in those days, before digital, you had to make cassettes. If you wanted to collect things, you had to make cassettes. So I gathered all these albums together, and then I got the discographical words, and I figured out an order in which they had been recorded. And then I assembled this cassette series, about 8 cassettes, of all Monk's music from 1947 to 72. And I listened to it all. And that inspired this work, really. I wanted to, you know, Monk was such an extraordinary individual. Probably, I don't know, in all of jazz history. Lester Young, Thelonious Monk, they were like the two farthest out individuals as guys. And Monk was just, to me, as a beatnik. I used to think of myself as a beatnik. I came up under the J. Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg rule. So to a beatnik, to me, Thelonious Monk is like the cat, you know.